Hey everyone, and sorry about that, by the way. I had to shut the TV off. But I was just doing a tag response or a video response for Geeker Days, and it got me thinking about something, right? So, and believe it or not, one of the things is this little number, which sits right down here. Now you can't see it, but can you? No, you really can't. Damn it. Hold on. This right here shit. Is the majority of my NES collection, which comes out of that closet well over there. Yes, literally coming out of the closet, if you will. But it got me thinking about some of the stuff that I actually keep in there, and some of it even I couldn't believe that I kept in there, to be perfectly honest. So, I thought we'd try a little something with that, maybe on and off. And tonight, one of the things for sure is talking about the history I have with a little game called Dragon Warrior. Now, if it was, I will say this right now, if it wasn't for this game, or even my father playing this game, you would never see me as hardcore on the JRPG genre as I am today, to be quite frank. Because when you look at it, when you look at the JRPGs, what is the one game that always seems to come to the forefront? Final Fantasy, right? Of course, it would have to be. But the problem is, if we're really honest with ourselves, probably the franchise, at least for the NES days, would be the Dragon Quest series, or Dragon Warrior series, depending on what side of the ocean you live on. Now, my father, believe it or not, owned all 4 of these games. He owned this one, 2, 3, and of course, number 4. Of the 4 games that came out for the NES, the 2 he beat, this one, and this one. Of course, they're the only other 2 that I've beaten currently. The 2 that I haven't beaten are the ones that he hasn't for the NES, and those are, of course, number 2 and number 3. By the way, chronologically speaking, you have to go like this: 3, 1, 2, 4. In case anybody ever wanted to know that. The Dragon Quest series is by far the one that I honestly have played the most and have enjoyed the most. Alrighty? The reason I can say that is because, well, if we're really honest, it's the only one that can keep my attention for hours on end because it kept it simple. It didn't have to get fancy with, limit break this, let me think. The limit break this, junction this, spear grid this, Crystarium that. It's like, what the hell? Wait. When you have to have a tutorial every 5 seconds in a freaking RPG, we got a problem. And don't get me wrong, I love the JRPGs. Especially the anime style ones like Record of Argus War, which I just picked up, last week. And of course the Persona series and stuff like that. But the first love always came from Dragon Warrior. Now my father, I forget what level my father was on actually when he beat Dragon Dragon Warrior 1, now that I think about it. Well, I know when I beat it, I was at level 21. And some people say that's hardcore, because they couldn't beat until they were in the mid to late 20s. Remember, the max level in that game was 30. I forget what levels I was at when I finally beat Necrosaro in the DS version of this game, of Dragon Quest IV. But I know one thing: the night that I did it, oh my God! If you would, I wish I had the webcam on, and I wish y'all could have seen me. I was emotionally and physically drained. Well, more emotionally drained. Why? Because I had done something that only my father had done. Probably, let me think. This is, at the time, I think I did in 2010, so probably, I don't know, 15 years ago. It was a very special time for me to actually say I beat a game that my father had beaten. Because if you want me to be perfectly honest, it is the one bond I can safely say that we had. It is the Dragon Quest franchise. Then of course I went into other JRPGs and he kind of stepped away from them, but although he did play Dragon Warrior 7 when it was still branded as Dragon Warrior. But it was one of those things, you know what I mean? You couldn't help but play one of those games, because the JRPG back in the late 80s and even for the most part of a good part of the 90s, they were rare. They were rare to play. If you want to go there. I mean, what did you have? You had the first Final Fantasy game, because nobody knew if there was going to be a second or a third. And then, of course, you had the Dragon Warrior series. And the only game that was ever really hyped was the first one. Yeah. This little number. Think about it. And you can go on YouTube and search for that advertisement. Guess what? It'll still be there. I don't even remember if Dragon Quest 2, 3, or 4 got an advert on American television. I do remember that after 4 came out here, there was talk about us getting 5, but that never happened. Kind of pissed me off too. Because then we only got what? We only got 7 and then 8, but we didn't have any. We didn't even get 5 or 6 done until, you know, Square Enix says, "Hey, you know what, guys? You suffered long enough, so we're gonna say here's Dragon Quest V and Dragon Quest VI." Oddly enough, however, of the 3, this one was published by Square Enix. 4 was. This one, now by the way, I'm talking about the DS versions, because actually, this one, I believe, if I remember correctly, when it came out for the NES, was actually published by Nintendo. This one was published by Square Enix, but this one, this is the kicker, this one was actually published by the Big N. Go figure that one out. By the way, Nintendo also published 9. But here would be a question for you. If you played the series, or even one of the games, what were your thoughts on the Dragon Quest series, or the game that you played? And it can be any of them. I don't care if you pick any of the main games from the first 8, well, first 9 rather, because 10 hasn't come out yet. Or I don't even mind if you decide you want to pick, you know, Rocket Slime or Joker. By the way, supposedly the Joker 2 that's out in Japan is coming to the US, which I think would be kind of cool. Although I have yet to actually touch this one again. What do I know, right? Anyway. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment below. Video response. You know how it works. You all have a good one. Later.